Director of PAT Business School since 2018. He has lectured for over 25 years for professional accountancy bodies and was twice shortlisted for the CIMA Global Accountancy Lecturer of the Year Award. In 2023, PAT rebranded to reflect its growth and industry demands. Under Gerry's leadership, PAT became one of the first institutions to achieve ACCA Triple Platinum status, a global benchmark of excellence. With international financial services experience, Gerry has mentored over 100 global prize winners, including top 3 world placements. So please give a round of applause to Gerry Fahy.
Good morning or good afternoon. First of all, a special word of thanks to Chartered Accountants Ireland for hosting today's event. To Cirrus, hopefully you're getting the well-renowned and well-respected acknowledgement of the terrific work you've done. To my fellow presenters and to you all for being here today, and indeed for those who will be watching later on. And I'll be joined by Orlagh in terms of the what and the how, what it is we're trying to do, but how we implement it. And so in terms of that transition between, if you like, Cirrus and the implementation at a higher education university level, and the protocols necessary to ensure that smooth transition. So Orlagh will talk about that later on. I suppose maybe from the outset, I'll just give you a brief background. For my sins, I've worked in 8 different banks right up to the Central Bank of Ireland, and at night time I used to teach. And I was driven by the motivation to, I found to qualify was quite challenging. And I made a promise to myself that if I was ever lucky enough to qualify, I'd love to teach the way I'd love to be taught. So that drove my pedagogic style, because in the binary blood sport of accountancy, 49 is 0 and 50 is 100. So therefore, you really want to develop a teaching style that encourages practice, because the more you practice, the luckier you get. So therefore, that, if you like, relentless pursuit of excellence drove me in terms of the accomplishments that students made. I didn't take the exams. I just created the culture for them to be bine melior optimi, be the best you can be. So that was my job as an educationalist. So from that perspective, for 20 years, I lectured at nighttime, and I could see circa 212, 213, 214, something strange was happening, something strange and wonderful was happening. Is that people were communicating without speaking, and they were doing it in a digital device. So as we're in a lecture theatre or something like this, we're being drowned out by the sound of silence, because while they were communicating, they weren't speaking. And I was saying to myself, okay, why are we bringing people in to a bricks and mortar environment when the DNA of the very learner in front of me were consuming their current sport, social, music, whatever it is, in a digital device? So therefore, we should be looking at embracing this. It's often said, if you don't like change, you will like being irrelevant even less. So therefore, change is a constant. Change is to be embraced. In my corporate life, I've seen and worked with many brilliant people. And sometimes in corporate life, if the top table doesn't like the message, invariably they don't like the messenger. I'm okay with that. I was okay with that. I was comfortable in me. So what's your DNA? What's your legacy? You stand on the sideline, or you dare to dance the tide and be the architect of change and redefine what good looks like? That's me. So from my perspective, I was going, we need to redefine. So in 2018, we set up PAT Business School, PAT as it was. And it was 3 words, professional accountancy training. By the time you type those 3 words in, you've lost the will to live. So then it was a 19-year-old computer science student who's going, we should go PAT. And we should be doing, oh, well, what do you do? Education. And who's your biggest customer? EU. Because in 2018, when I had this vision in my head, we were extremely blessed that at a government policy level, they believed in what we were trying to do. And that access to education, particularly in terms of lifelong learning, is that there are only 168 hours in the week. Time management became a really important thing for people. So we effectively started off with accountancy. And then what happened subsequently was that there were increasing pressures falling upon the finance function that were now just more than just to receive, the record, the process, and the report. There were now challenges with regard to anti-money laundering, counterterrorism finance, data literacy, cybersecurity, fintech, regtech. There were multifactorial demands now devolving onto the C-suite and finance function. So therefore, how could we respond? So therefore, from our perspective, it was a case of, well, what are industry saying? So what industry were saying was, this is what we want. So we created something in a sandbox of trust, where I lean forward, Christine leans forward, government lean forward, whereby we said, what are the national skills challenges? What is education? So for 30 years, I've been teaching. So education is about what and how. What you need to know and how you embrace the digital tools to apply what you've been taught to be the best that you can be and do the job that employers want. What? How? Technology was going to be that catalyst to recognize the revolution that was happening. Did I know what was going to happen in 2020? No idea. But I was drowned out by the sound of silence. And technology was the gatekeeper to increasing accessibility. For sure, the socialization of education is hugely, hugely, hugely important. We talked about in terms of Dr. Wall earlier on, he was going, that empathetic piece. The PhD, the what you need to know. But really, how are you going to apply it? So I suspect there's going to be a redefining as to the competency threshold in terms of the skills required with that fantastic education. But technology is here. So I'm going to talk very briefly about this, okay? I'll take you through it, okay? I'm going to talk about CBE, computer-based exams, and the objective of what we were trying to achieve in 2018 was, how can we reflect the workplace of the future through an examination system? So I sat down with a sketch of paper with my daughter, our daughter, and she had graduated from university and was now in EY. And I had sketched out and I said, this is what I'd like to achieve. Okay, the what, okay, is that the need and the want. Because the government had believed and trusted us in relation to Springboard and HCI funding, they needed data to be able to demonstrate that those who participated, if you like, concluded. So we had a dashboard called ERCP. Are you engaged? Did we retain you? Did you complete? And did you progress? So we talked earlier on about, Ian talked about the dashboard. For us, ERCP. And ERCP is hugely, hugely important in education. So therefore we're going, okay, how can we try and do this? How can we try and reflect what the workplace environment wants through the prism of the technology and testing learning outcomes? That was the birth of PAT. Because I was drowned out by the sound of silence. And the DNA of the Gen Z, they were so comfortable with this. So, a couple of things. It's better for someone else to say it rather than me. Okay, so in 23, we were up against public universities, private colleges, and Big Four learning academies. We won because of the ethos and the philosophy. If you're second, you're the first loser. We have to be the best. In terms of public sector and private sector, in terms of what we're doing in terms of accountancy and fintech, this is recognition in terms of the public sector awards of 2024. The 4th of July means lots of things for different people, but this year, this was us. Are we teaching training that uses technology? Or are we a technology company that does high-end training that's validated by government, university, EU, industry, professional bodies. So PAT dropped the word accountancy, and it's now professional accredited training. Because accredited means is you've got a higher competency of student coming through in what we do. So that led us into, if you like, here. Okay? And initially, they look the same. But three distinct words that are different. Is that one is online, the other is blended, and the other is face-to-face. Okay? We were one of the first in the world to achieve this in the quickest time in the 120-year history of ACCA. So in terms of teaching excellence of what we're trying to do and the different mediums of delivery, be it face-to-face, blended, or online, that was the first, one of the first. And there are over 340 colleges, universities, and business schools in the world that teach ACCA. But it was done from an office throughout the country, and from me, beside Tato Park in Ashburn. It was technology. Because technology was the game changer. You no longer had to have a physical bricks and mortar in the particular jurisdiction or physical location of delivery. Technology. So then it was a case of, okay, we had this from an accountancy perspective. We then said, okay, I get approached by a previous student, and he said, can you send me your best and brightest of banking talent? I was going, okay, yeah, fine. I said, why, what's the interest in this? He said, I think Ireland is going to benefit greatly as a result of Brexit. I was going, oh, okay. Is this a sample of one, or is there empirical evidence? He's going, oh, no, it's empirical evidence. I was going, who says? He's going, well, my boss. He's a networker, and I'm the worker. And every place he goes, he brings me with him. So I'm seeing this surge of demand for finance professionals with a risk and compliance background in fintech. I was going, okay, wouldn't have known. And he's going, there is a surge because companies in the greater London area are going to have to relocate to mainland Europe to continue their business model. And then that area is going to be in fintech. And he said the central bank may have been asleep in 2007. That's in inverted commas. I'm not saying that. It was quoted in papers. But he said it won't be this time because they're going to be all over this in terms of a regulatory center of excellence. And Dublin can become that. And I said, why? He said, very simple. Common law, common language, common time zone, ease of physical access, and access to skilled personnel. And anybody in the fintech space is going to be, will benefit from that. 3 hours before I give a lecture, I generally don't meet anybody because I've got to be in the frame of mind of edutainment. It's not entertainment, and it's not education. If you're putting on an online lecture, you've got to maintain the interest of somebody for 4 hours. It's showtime, but it's a knowledge transfer. So you've got to have ingested applications and intervals during your lecture to maintain the interest. Because you need to get through. So saying, how can we take all of that? So at the time, just 1 year after we buying out the Irish Times, my wife and I, we bought out the Irish Times, I was going, okay, I want to set up a fintech school. I know nothing about fintech. Still don't. But there's a man here who does. There's a man here who does. And I was going, okay. So I said to my good lady wife, I need 50,000 to get somebody to study a Harvard and an Oxford course on fintech. She's from Donegal. You wouldn't need a degree in English to understand the response I got. But in life, if you don't know something, make sure you find out. You need to know what you don't know. And the only brief I gave that particular lady was, do you think this would work in Ireland? And she wanted to do a PhD in research. And she embraced the challenge. And she's going, absolutely all day long. So that journey that we had started in accountancy was then brought forward into the fintech school. But I needed someone to be able to drive that. And that man is Andrew Quinn. And Andrew had started a fintech debate in Ireland. And I was going, okay, if we can just bring that together. And then it was a case where we're going like, okay, will people actually believe what we're doing? Is this just a good soundbite, or is it of substance? So in relation to that, let's go here, maybe go back here. There. These are our partners who've just believed what I've just told you. It's better to show rather than me to tell. So therefore, when we came up with the concept for fintech, we're going, okay, we think there's going to be demand. So we came up with something. Andrew was the architect of the syllabus. We approached the university, and the university was going, okay, well, we need to, who are you? So for 10 weeks, this lady owned us. Morning, noon, and night, breakfast, dinner, tea. She needed to know everything, and rightfully so. Who are you? You're 2 years old. We're going through a merger ourselves. And you're saying that you're going to transform education in the fintech space that's going to be complementary to our product and core offering. Really? Show me, don't tell me. So in that period of time, it was a situation whereby we went to the university. The university did a comprehensive due diligence, and shortly thereafter they're going, we'll proceed with caution and we'll take one step. And that one step was the program in fintech risk and compliance. Fast forward, we now have 6 validated programs. In 2020, 2021, the university said, okay, we like what we see. We trust you for one program. You will never make your reputation in a day, but you could lose it in a day. So from us, in terms of governance and how we do things to be the best that we try to be, was really important to us. We are now 6 validated programs in to the incredible partnership relationship that exists with TU Dublin. But you can't really bring in, if you like, a fintech program in a, if you like, without it being tested using the most advanced assessment and testing scenario. Hence, the partnership with Ceres. I was very conscious in terms of my career, in terms of stakeholder management. So stakeholder management, the university, albeit in its new format, but its origins was very well established. So it had to be done very carefully. So from my perspective, in banking, I saw numerous projects that were implemented in terms of IT projects, and they failed, and they sunk like a stone to the bottom of a barrel of water. Because culture, ownership, responsibility. That lady, Orlagh, who was never going to let me down, because she was the link between what we wanted to achieve and what the university needed to have. So when Christine goes into the exam board, the rigor, the integrity, the assessment of what we do and how we do it was really important. The first computer-based exam introduced in higher education in Ireland was our partnership with Ceres. We understood the culture of the organization. We effectively were the conduit of linking the technology with the rigor of a higher education environment. And there were 486 exams, I think scripts, 486? 486 scripts. There were 492 people who were eligible to do it. The 6, they were just referrals or deferrals. So the key part of computer-based exam and introducing it into higher education sector had to be carefully managed, carefully orchestrated. Because there's one thing I realize in terms of senior management, like in terms of university, they don't do surprises. And they don't do reputational risk. So we went with a small pilot as proof of concept. So if we look at in terms of the professional exams in Ireland, Chartered Accountants, Ireland, were the first globally regulated ones to do a computer-based exam with Ceres. The first computer-based exams in higher education in Ireland, Ceres. Tried and tested. So from our perspective, just very briefly, just in relation to this, computer-based exams, I'm not going to go into detail, but you know this. What are the benefits of doing computer-based exams that we saw? That we saw were all of that. It was secure, credible, fair, accurate, and authentic. It was fair. Everybody was in the same environment. Number one. With regard to proctoring, Okay, so the prevention of cheating, exam integrity, environmental control, compliant and consistent, data security, really, really important. Everything is okay until something goes wrong. In the words of a previous Irish Prime Minister, after landing the biggest political deal in the history of this state, on the 31st of July 1994, where there was a cessation of troubles in this country, it should have been the highlight of his career. Within 10 weeks later, he had tripped up on a small little thing. And when he was asked, you had all of this, you landed this incredible deal. What happened? And he said, it's the small things that trip you up. The attention to detail, that TQM that Ian talks about earlier on. So that was really, really important for us. AI correction, we'll talk about it later on in terms of BLEAS, so I'm not going to get into that, but it's really, really powerful. Absolutely powerful in terms of the data that's been built. I'm not suggesting, I'm not advocating, I'm not recommending that any higher education institution should use AI as a substitute to manual correction. But what I am saying is you should build a data set that should corroborate the QA of the veracity of, if you like, the human correction process. Benefits. Why should you do this? Why should you even remotely think of change? Increased efficiency, increased lecturing capacity. Having worked 30 years teaching higher ed and professional education, the one thing that I dislike intently is setting exams and marking scripts, because it's not the best of my ability. My best of my ability is to get inside your head and make you believe you can be anything you want because you dare to dream of a better life. Why would you want education? Because you want to get off the carousel and explore the opportunities that education can give you. So therefore, increasing capacity is the pain point is reduced. The quality assurance is increased. If we can test students in a manner that reflects and mimics the workplace of the future, surely that's the transformational impact. We will teach you what you need to know, but we will also show you how you apply those taught principles. Having an examination system and platform that reflects and mimics the workplace environment is fantastic. Ian talked about earlier on about the embedded 365, Office 365. This is groundbreaking, transformational. He said it in a blasé manner. It's much more than blasé. So therefore, if I'm reporting into you and you ask me that you want to report because you're meeting the bank next week, the articulation of that request through the prism of an exam question is, okay, do an interpretation of accounts and do a report. So therefore, unless you are aware of it, and this was one of the things that was a challenge to Chartered, and that they mastered brilliantly, was the whole aspect of the visual traffic can be very cluttered. So people who fail exams, bless you, people who fail exams don't fail because they don't know. They fail because they're not used to the practice platform. And it's not lack of knowledge that's going to beat you. It's time, question selection strategy, and you haven't put in the hours of practice. So therefore, the exam should reflect that in terms of the Word, Excel, PowerPoint presentation. These are all the additional skills that you need. It's embedded into the practice platform. I'm going to talk very briefly, and the thought leaders of this right now are Chartered Accountants Ireland. I'm not privy to the details. I'm just making recognizing that with regard to this is, if you like, adaptive learning. And I'm just back from a trip to Dubai, where I met with the largest university and global body, one of the big four, and the regulator in the DIFC. If you think that this is just a thing, it's not. This is real, it's here, and it's now. Dr. Wald said at the outset, 6 months ago, probably too early. 12 months from now, it's going to be too late. The time is here, the time is now. And adaptive learning is quite simply, is whereby the system neurologically relates to your speed and consumption of comfort or resistance of learning. So therefore, what is normally a linear process can now be recalibrated depending upon your comfort level on the subject matter. So something that might take 40 hours of learning, depending upon your neurological comfort level, might be reduced to 10 or 15 hours. Similarly, it goes the other way. You may have, if you like, a dyslexic, for example, requirement, or a dyslexic, if you like, condition. So therefore, the system will adapt to that pace of learning. So what does it do? It raises standards. Adaptive learning makes sure that nobody is left behind and nobody is constrained by the fastest or the slowest mover. You have a personalized, if you like, AI tutor that's taking you through, if you like, the areas of difficulty. What do we think here in terms of adaptive learning? Every learner will have a personal journey. They will have a personal, if you like, tutor, for the want of a better word. There'll be real-time feedback. Dr. Wall talked about it earlier on. He's going, when I've done my exam, I'd like to have known the result I got, rather than waiting an interim period of time. Yeah, this is happening. So the role of technology and that of a lecturer should be coaching. The biggest thing that lecturers always get is, why did I get that mark? What about if I got, I thought I should have got a higher mark. So with, if you like, interventions, and we'll talk later on in terms of Sojin, is that it will give you, if you like, almost like a diagnosis as to what good looks like. So we'll take what you wrote and go, listen, if you change this ever so slightly, you could have scored higher. So the role of the lecturer, the teacher, is to be the mentor and the coach for performance excellence, not to go through the drudgery of interruption, concentration loss, subjectivity bias. System corrects it. It gives you almost like that script. Dr. Wall and Christine talked about it earlier on in terms of you want somebody who's going to be empathetic and bring you to the next level, for you to be bine melior optimi, for you to be the best that you could be. The benefits: improved engagement, self-paced learning, target instruction. So if you're finding it difficult, maybe with consolidated foreign subsidiaries or something like that, you're like, oh, I really don't want to do a half-an-hour lecture in relation to that. What I would like to know is how to calculate goodwill, IFRS 3, gross versus partial method, bang. Give me the 90-second backpacker's guide. So therefore, there's empirical evidence to suggest that if you are doing 1 hour of learning, 1 hour of learning is that in the linear model, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to get my head together, I'm going to do an hour study. In the normal linear model, there's empirical evidence to suggest, to prove, not suggest, to prove, that the optimal flow of learning is 15 minutes, 1-5. So an hour in gets you 15 minutes out. Adaptive learning, hour in, 50 minutes out. The gamification of adaptive learning is going to be like a Netflix. How many times at 11 o'clock at night you're going, no, I shouldn't watch this next episode, and it's going to bring you the next video, the next episode. Could you imagine having education that would take you on that journey? Whereby, oh, I'm so far in, I can't leave now, because it's creating that tension of going, I want more. Imagine having education like that. Adaptive learning. So one thing about professional education. Should we be assessed and tested at a point in time or over time? If I talk in terms of this serious technology, it is far easier to cheat in a 3-hour exam than it is in maybe a 15-week delivery. The point being is that if you're testing someone over time, it's a better snapshot of their performance. Empirical evidence would suggest in terms of adaptive learning that you can learn twice as quick and retain twice as much. It's coming down the track, and resistance is futile. I'm not suggesting that this replace the expertise of lecturers and front of house faculty. What I am suggesting is it is an augmentation tool to help those be not left behind, whilst at the same time preparing them for the workplace of the future. Just that bit. Just think of it. Just think of it in terms of nieces, nephews, sons, daughters. Really? Should you be testing a 15-year-old student on a brain memory dump at a high-stake exam for 3 hours to reflect 3 years of work. Really? Is that what good looks like? In the words of my daughter when she was younger, I don't think so, Daddy. It's much more than that. It means it's the application of taught principles. It means that you're raising the collective of the competency of our learners. To get from the journey we got to 18, PAT, who are they? Who's he? What are they about? The journey traveled to be one of the first in the world to do what we did. With regard to the university, they said it's going to be 18 months, Gerry, to go through our process. When they saw the body of work, 18 months became 10 weeks. They owned us for 10 weeks because they recognized fintech, Brexit, etc. Move now, nimble and agile. In the words of the president of the partnership, Mr. Thomas Stone, who very kindly said on the first graduation of our students who came through the fintech school, he said it, not me, because I would never be so brash as to say this. He said, TU Dublin can do things that we can't. PAT Business School can do things they can't. And together we can do things that neither of us could before. In terms of public-private partnership, we try to be the best of it. Do we get things always right? No. Do we learn? Yeah, we do, quick and fast. So in terms of what we do, in-depth training is really important, improved workflow and time management, and in terms of the biggest thing of all is quality assurance. That triple platinum means something. The quickest in the global history of ACCA, the partnership with the university, our other industry partners, it's really, really important because our job is to link the what and the how. What you need to know and how you apply that to make sure that you have achieved your educational, if you like, goals, objectives, and learning outcomes. That's me. I am reminded in conclusion, is that when somebody said to me before, if you're ever going to do a presentation, can I remind you of the following? You should stand up to be seen, speak up to be heard, but most importantly of all, sit down to be appreciated. So I'm going to do that, and I'm just going to very briefly hand you over to Orlagh, because Orlagh is going to take you through, if you like, in terms of what's it like to start on the journey, in terms of if you were to implement CBE. Would that be fair to say? Gotcha. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Orlagh and I am the Senior Operations and Admissions Manager at PAT Business School, and I'm just really going to briefly take you through our first-hand experiences and then some practical advice, and it is going to be brief, I promise. First thing to talk about really is our students, because they are at the forefront of everything we do at PAT Business School, and we did create demo exams for them to get used to the environment first. I know this has been mentioned before. Sorry, that wasn't me. This has been mentioned before, but these demos were designed to exactly mirror the exams for the students, and it gave the students a chance to practice as much as possible before their actual exam day. And it was a really crucial step because we found that out of 180 students in our trial cohort, 172 actually logged in beforehand. And I spoke to the students prior to the exams, during the exams, and after the exams. They were really, really sick of me at one point. But we found that allowing them to do the demo exams was really helpful for them, especially with their anxiety around actually doing the exams. We also created a lot of different videos and written tutorials, so students learn in lots of different ways, as we know. So we had both video and written tutorials for them, and I also offered one-to-one trainings for them as well. They didn't really use that as much. They were much more into the videos than the one-to-one. I think they just were sick of me. We also spoke to the students a lot about their concerns. So when we moved to Cirrus, one of the questions that came up a lot was why? Why are we moving? Why are we changing? I don't like change. And we spoke to the students about their concerns about what we were doing previously. And previously, the platform that we were using, if their connectivity dropped or their Wi-Fi went down, it meant that their exam was finished. It meant that it was dropped completely, and they had to then do resits in August. So we spoke to them about how using Cirrus would allow us to address those concerns and address the connectivity issues as well. And it really got the students to get onboarded and to care about the program too, because it meant that they knew why we were doing it. We were also able to update our disability and inclusion policy as well. So we had improved access for the students because we allowed them to have extra time in the exams if it was needed. So all those reasonable accommodations were met as well. In terms of the actual full exam, I really have to talk about the assessment team because they're a really, really great bunch of people. They do a lot of work in really stressful times. So they will mark all of our exam scripts, and with the academic calendar, they're under a lot of pressure to get the exams marked and in on time. So with Cirrus, the grading process became a lot more streamlined. So the assessment team mentioned to me that they actually reduced a lot of their emails because the head of assessment could go in and she could see immediately where everyone was and if anyone needed additional support or anything like that. They also talked a lot about the automatic calculations of grades within Cirrus. So during a stressful time, which was the academic calendar, you have to get everything marked in time. With the automatic calculation of grades, it took away that human error when it came to calculating it. Cirrus was already calculating it for them. And by the end of the exam cycle, we actually had all of our grades submitted ahead of the deadline. And Christine will agree that's fairly notable. In terms of quality assurance as well, I know that's been mentioned a lot today, but we have run a fair few exams now using Cirrus. We actually had our first student with connectivity issues in the last exam that we ran, and I was able to just pause the exam for them and taught them through those technological fixes. I mean, the technological fixes was just turn your router off and on again and see if that helps, and it did, so that was fantastic. But it was really, really great to be able to pause that exam, and then they're able to go back into it when there was any issues. On the other side as well, we did use Proctorio as a plugin, and that tracked the students during their exams. So I know that this has been spoken about, but it was live and recorded. So our exams are open book, which means that they can use all the different tabs they want, but they shouldn't be using AI in those exams. So we used Proctorio just to make sure and to ensure that quality assurance. I did do a short video just to show you what it looked like, if it works. I don't know. Yes, someone's embedded it for me, thank you. And I will say that this is a reenactment, so any GDPR specialists in the room, don't worry. This isn't a real student. This is me, but it is me working from home, so I do look a little bit different.
Through the Proctorio tool in Cirrus and how it helps to ensure that exam integrity. And we're going to start by looking at the behavior settings, which you can see on my screen in front of you, which can be customized depending on your institution's policies. Now at PAT, we do use open book exams, so we do allow our students to have tabs open for their reference. We have, however, locked down the ability to copy and paste, just ensuring that students don't take information directly from a website and throw it directly into their exams. So as you can see here, the behavior settings are flexible, and we can strike a balance then between giving students access to resources and maintaining that exam security. So if I scroll down as well, you can see the different frame metrics, which sets the weight of suspicious behavior within the exams. So while tabs, we do allow tabs to be open, copy pasting is disabled, and we can also see exactly what students access during their exam, which I'll show you in a moment when we get to the review centre. But looking here at the frame metrics, you can see that navigating away from the exam, I have put into as a red flag, and also copying and pasting is down as a red flag too. And I'll show you what that again looks like in the review centre now. Now I am jumping around a little bit in this recording, and that's just because this was a live exam, so it does have actual student data in it, and I just want to make sure I don't share anything that I shouldn't. But this is what the review centre looks like, and don't worry, that's me on the left-hand side. I'm not sharing an actual student's attempt. So you can see here on the left-hand side, there's the student taking the attempt, and on the right-hand side, it's directly showing their screen, and it shows everything on their screen, not just the assessment. So you can see at the top, I've got different tabs open. You can also see the Zoom that I had open because I was recording at the time. And then along the bottom, you can see I had one Chrome tab open, a PowerPoint and Zoom as well. So scrolling down just underneath, you can see there are moments in the exam which have been flagged as suspicious. So this one's flagged as suspicious just because I'm turning my head away. I'm also probably talking at the same time, so the audio levels will be flagged as suspicious there as well. But if we go down, we can see a little bit more detail on the exam. So it does tell us how the attempt was ended, but it also shows us the web traffic index. And that's what's really, really important for us at PAT FinTech, because it will show us what students were accessing during their exam and when. So you can see here, I accessed two things during the exam, which was the Cirrus platform and ChatGPT, which of course is an issue for open book exams. And if we press that little play button just here on the left-hand side, it takes us to the exact moment where I accessed ChatGPT. And you can see me there, if I press play, you can see me there chatting away and accessing ChatGPT, typing typing in the answer questions and getting answers from it. I do attempt to copy paste, but obviously it doesn't work as that's locked down, but you can see exactly what the student is doing during the exam. Just in case more details were needed, you can also see the exam duration of the student, how long it took them. So it took me 82% less time than the average student to complete. That's probably because I had ChatGPT and only wrote one sentence. You can also see details as well on the device performance index underneath. So everything about their performance and the computer issues that they had. It can be really helpful if technical issues are raised for the student, or if you notice that the student's performance is unusually poor and you're trying to figure out why. So all of this is really, really helpful if a student does challenge your findings or questions the judgment of their AI use during their exam, because in cases like this, we have detailed proof, it's time-stamped, the web traffic index and flagged behaviors, as well as just, the actual recording of them doing it, really ensures transparency and provides strong evidence if a student disputes the results. So that's a very, very brief overview of what Proctorio looks like. It was a really powerful set of tools that we used to monitor the exams. And we were able to then maintain trust in the exam process and address any issues efficiently. Thank you.
So that there is just a really brief overview of Proctorio and how it was used. So our invigilation team absolutely loved it, because it meant that if they were saying to a student, look, we know you used AI, the proof is there, it's fully recorded, and you can see the timestamps as well when they went on the web traffic. So that was fantastically helpful. And then moving on just to some practical advice for anyone who is thinking of bringing in any assessment platform. First and foremost, I will say that comprehensive training is so, so important. We had a very lovely and very patient man from Cirrus called Matthias who answered all of my questions, but we got to learn all about the platform, and I truly felt like I understood it before I then went in and taught the students and my colleagues. We also had the students fully trained on it as well. So again, those demo exams and making sure they knew exactly what they were doing. Faking it till you make it is important in a lot of aspects of life, but within Cirrus we actually created fake student profiles so that we could really understand what it looked like from the student perspective, and that meant that we could answer any of their concerns or queries before they actually asked them, so we could build that into the training then as well. Simple things like, this browser is better than this browser, all that kind of stuff. We can talk about that with the students beforehand, so it gets rid of any issues before they actually go into their exam. It's also really important to address student concerns early. So yes, those tutorial videos, but being able to have the time to lead into it is really important. So Ian, I don't know if you're still here, but you absolutely stressed me out with your timeline. The idea that you were turning it on a moment before it was due is mad and not something I could have undone. So I applaud you for that. But addressing their concerns is so important, because we learned from talking to the students that a lot of our students actually use work laptops, which means that they have to actually get permission to access things like Cirrus and like Proctorio. So having that time to build in is incredibly important. Also, knowing your shared goals and making sure that everyone on the team is a part of it is really important too. So yes, we had Cirrus set up, and yes, I was really sure it was going to work, but on the actual day, on our first exam, I was sat on my laptop at 9 p.m. just watching the names tick and the numbers tick up. And then I got a text message from one of my colleagues, Inga, and she said, "All okay? It's so quiet." And it was just fantastic to have someone else on the team to know that everyone was stressing about it, even though it was fine. And then I will say, take things step by step. So it's really important that you just slowly integrate it. So we started with the core Cirrus program, and then we updated by including Proctorio and turn it in as well. So that step-by-step was really, really helpful for us. So that's a really, really brief overview of the practical applications of Cirrus. I hope it was helpful. If you're thinking of bringing it in, I'm very happy to take any questions, or you can always message me on LinkedIn as well if you think of a question at 2 in the morning. Thank you very much.